I think you're just trying to create repetition and like try to figure out a way to beat the odds, or maybe use the percentages. Like, some of these power plays in the league are just so consistent because they just are repetitively doing the same things and they're consistent with it and they stay with it. And some of those power plays are so good. I think sometimes we just think we can pass it in the net, and sometimes it just takes a shot. And I played in a power play when I was playing, and I never loved guys that shot the puck all the time because it seemed like you didn't always get it back. But now as a coach, you feel a little bit differently about like a shot really kind of creates chaos. And I think that when you have the better players out there, the chaos is where they do best.
That was Derek Plante, 450 game NHLer and the assistant coach of the Chicago Blackhawks. And you are listening to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podollan. Just watch me now. Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podollan, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podollan, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hey there, welcome back or welcome to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podollan. I am your host, Jason Podollan, and today we are bringing back a former guest by the name of Derek Plante. For those of you who are faithful listeners, you would have listened to Derek where we broke down his excellent career and diverse career, 20-time 20-goal scorer at the NHL level with the Buffalo Sabres. And all over, played international. We broke down his journey, and also at the time, I believe he was assistant coach with Minnesota Duluth of the D1 system. And so that's a few episodes back if you want to go check out that. But in this conversation, when we bring Derek back, I am talking more along the lines of you are an assistant coach in the NHL, and you happen to have on what's supposed to be the future of hockey in Connor Bedard as an 18-year-old rookie on your team and under your influence. And I wanted to dive into that because why wouldn't I? I think it's super interesting. One, there's so much media attention around Connor right now. And this episode is being recorded. I think he's about 14, 15 games into his NHL career and doing quite well by all accounts. He's doing very well. The team isn't doing well. And I thought that there was a lot of interesting questions to ask Derek around that. Like what is the strategy when you have a player, first overall player, like a generational type talent that's coming to your training camp? Is there a strategy with the coaching staff? I mean, how has the organization talked about him, and what do you do with Connor Bedard on a daily basis? So I wanted to know all the organizational side of it and the coaching side. And also I thought we'd get a firsthand look at what makes Connor Bedard what he is. I mean, what was the first impressions of Connor, and what surprised him the most, and what is he most impressed by? We talk a lot about Connor. We also do talk about Kevin Korchinski, who's another rookie there in Chicago. They have some really cool young players to watch for. So we'll definitely talk about development, what's the best way and how to do it. We also talk about Derek's sons. I mean, Derek has 3 sons that are playing at high levels right now of their age group. We have Zam, who was just drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins and is now playing for Fargo in the USHL. I believe he's second in the league in points right now as we speak. His middle son is playing at the US DP program, and his middle son's name's Max, I believe. And then there's also Victor, who's playing for the Chicago Mission. So, I mean, Derek has an interesting perspective on this, being an NHL player himself, an assistant coach in the NHL, assistant coach for Connor Bedard. He also happens to be the father of 3 aspiring young athletes himself. And we get into about, how do you wear the hats for them and in all these different roles, and support your boys the best that you can. So I think this is a fantastic interview. Derek's always so great. He's just you can hear in the discussion, he's just a great guy. He's got a great energy about him. He's got this infectious smile. He's got a lot of energy, and he has a childlike enthusiasm about the game, and he always did. Even when I was playing with him, he just loved being on the ice, and I can see why he's been around the game so much now, and I can see why his boys are thriving as they are, because I'm sure he has a really positive influence on that environment. So I won't spend any more time breaking this down. This is a fun interview. If you're curious about Connor Bedard and want an inside look about all things Connor. So without further ado, I bring you my conversation with the assistant coach of the Chicago Blackhawks, Derek Plante. All right, Planter, we're live here at the Up My Hockey podcast. Thanks for coming on again.
Absolutely. Very excited.
Yeah, sweet. We talked a little bit off air. I mean, first of all, thanks for getting on here kind of last minute. I know you guys are in the middle of a season and it's busy and you're a dad, but we found a little bit of time, so we're going to take advantage of it. First of all, where do you guys playing tomorrow? Because that's where you're at, right?
Yeah, we got we'll be at home tomorrow against Toronto, 1:00 game. So yeah, last night in Columbus didn't go so well, but tomorrow we'll have another try at it. So we play pretty much every other day now until Christmas. So
yeah,
it's a busy time.
What a crazy schedule. Just gets me thinking, like, when you are doing that, what does that look like for the team and even for you? Are guys coming in every day? Is ice always there? How does that go?
Yeah, it's really about load management, right? So like it's a little bit dependent on, we got a little bit younger group this year than we did last year. So we're probably on the ice a little more than we were last year with a younger group. I don't know if the older guys like it as much, but it's just the way it goes, right? Like there's a lot of teaching still going on, and those guys just have so much energy, they want to get on the ice. And so the ice is pretty much available. We'll still have our off days for sure. It'll kind of depend on how the games go and how taxing they are. And again, like everything, the more you win or lose, you get more days off when you win than you do when you lose. So
but that hasn't changed, eh?
No, it hasn't changed. That well, we're pretty good about it, like thinking ahead of it and make sure we have the days off anyway. So we're not going to win a lot of games if we don't rest and have energy. So
yeah, it just, as you're saying that, is kind of funny because like especially me in more of the development mode. I mean, you guys are a young team,
mm-hmm.
which is in a development mode too. You need your younger players to be better players, but we don't often get better playing games, right? Like that's kind of like the performance aspect. So when you're not getting on the ice, or like, how do you kind of manage that? Like like even with the older guys, because there's still obviously things to work on. Like how do you go about that from the development aspect and the game management aspect?
Yeah, like like in a lot of ways, you'll talk to some people and say the NHL is not a development league. It's not. It's about winning and getting to be at that level. So we take a little bit of that element, and you're responsible to be good, but at the same time, we're not going to we got some kids like you mentioned earlier, is Korchinski and Bedard and Reichel, and some of these guys are young players that are in their early 20s, not even 20 yet. So they still are developing, and it's a tribute to them that they've done a lot of ahead of the game to be at this level already. But we don't want to skip out on them and not get them some of that extra development. So, we let those guys stay on a little bit longer. Obviously, they love to be on the ice and have energy. So we'll make sure the coaches are around to stay out there after. And sometimes it's a good half hour after. So try to get it in there. But there's just a lot of learning on the video too. The learning part is a huge part of their development right now.
Yeah. Who handles that as far as that's concerned? Is that assigned to one person?
No, we all take it on different roles. I guess Derek King and I do a lot of the forward work, and then Kevin Dean and Luke Richardson do a lot of the D work. Kinger and I will split a bit. I mean, Kinger does probably more of like video with a lot of the forwards because I have the task of working with the power play. So, there's video time with that, and those are the two areas there. And Kevin gets, a lot of D stuff. So we divvy it up, and we try to be helpful, and we try to kind of talk back and forth so we're not double duty on guys. So sometimes I'll take a guy or two for a week, and Kinger will take a guy or two for a couple of weeks, and you kind of build a relationship that way. So
yeah, the couple things are coming to mind already. So like when it comes to that video and I'm working with junior players kind of individually, sometimes as a team, and trying to get them ready and to be their best that they can be. Do you like when players like seek you out? Authentically wanting to know stuff, or do you approach them and say, "Hey, I want you to come in this"? A little bit of both. Like how does that work from your perspective as assistant coach at that level?
I think at any level, I think when they're coming to you and asking for help, or like want to be learning and want to get better, I think that's when there's probably the most development. I think there's sometimes, at our level where guys get, I don't want to say needy, but they get a little bit like they want to see everything all the time. And sometimes you want to tell some of those guys, let's just go play hockey, right? Like you're kind of almost overthinking it, right? Some of this is just about getting out and just playing and reacting to what you're seeing, and you're not that far off. They want to know every little play. So there's some kind of happy in between. I think the young guys, it seems to me, at a younger age, especially the really good ones, don't have as much structure in their game. And at this level, like if you don't have some of that structure, the other team literally just scores. It happens so fast, and in the young players, it happens to them all the time. Like and there's such fast reads, and everybody's so fast that it's definitely a work in progress. And I think with all of them, they learn a little bit differently, but video can definitely help in situations when you've talked about it, and then you can kind of show them. So it seems like it hits home a little bit better when they can actually watch it.
Yeah. The going back to earlier where you're saying about development league or a winning league, I would assume one of the things that you've probably changed from your time in the league, and I know mine as a player was, as a pro, I spent way less time like thinking about how I could get better and actually improving. Like it was about, like, to your point, it was about game management, being ready for games, and I wasn't thinking about edge work or like improving my shot necessarily, these types of things, right? It seems like that's coming more into the game for the veterans, especially the veterans that stay around longer. Is that accurate? Are guys working on things more now?
Yeah, they are, for sure. There's more purposeful work that way. Probably more structure that way. All the teams have skills coaches to help them with some of that too, so it's not always just on our coaching staff. Yeah. We have skill guys that can go with them early and work on some of those skill stuff, so they can get that out of the way. And obviously we don't want to leave anybody behind. If they want that work and they need that work, they're going to have it for them. And then it's always that management of how much is too much. And again, like almost like the video work, too much of that and you get it in your head. So there's a fine line with all pretty much everything. That too much can wear you out and make you kind of like crazy, and other times it's like you need to do a little bit more and at least work on that skill until we can get that right. So
yeah, that's interesting, especially with the young. I would assume with the younger players, because I can't relate to the fact of being comfortable in the NHL at any point, right? Like I was always the guy that needed to be there early and everything else, and even when you're a younger guy in the AHL. Sorry.
No, I was saying I'm the same way. So I get what you're saying. Like you're never really comfortable sometimes in the NHL.
Well, right, and so you're always kind of not only do you know that you need to be there early and you need to do the extra work because you're not getting the minutes these other guys do, but there's still a mental, there's mental work that you're doing. There's physical work that you're doing, and those guys need days off too. You know what I mean? And I guess is what I'm saying. And very rarely will a young guy say, "Hey, I need a day off." Like, is that kind of on you guys to say to whoever, right? The youthful, whoever that is, to say, I don't want you here today. Like, go home, do whatever you need to do.
For sure. There's way more of that. Like, no, you need to take a day off. We need you to take a day off. I know you want to be out here. You love being out here. We get that, but it's a day for you to rest because we need your energy tomorrow when we have a game. And we might need you at a certain point in the game. We might need to be ready at the end of the game still too, not just the first period or whatever. So
I think that's come a long way. I think like that, the whole mental side of it, like, because for me, maybe physically, I'm just speaking personally now, like I probably could keep going, but you just need a break. Like you need to be able to check out and be able to do something else. Right. But it wasn't really allowed. It's sort of that, young guys got to do this and young guys got to do that. And you're supposed to be there. But I'm glad that's changed a little bit.
For sure. I think it's a little bit important. A little bit of a funny, like, I guess maybe case study is I have two boys playing a junior hockey right now, and one's in Fargo, and he's just he loves to hunt, right? So he's been hunting every day, and he's getting away from the rink and doing something different, and it's been great for him. It's just good to see, like, he gets his mind off it for a second. He loves the game, of course, but he's just going out and he's hunting every day, and he's shooting a couple of pheasants or some ducks, and then he comes back and he's refreshed. And my other boys at the U.S. program, and like he's just all in. He's focused. He's in the hockey every day, and sometimes I think, like, man, that can be just a little bit overdoing it, like just take a day off and just kind of relax. And, I wish he had maybe something a little bit more else going on, like, with that US program, they don't have school to go to anymore. It's just that it's like almost 24 hockey, 24/7. So, it's a matter of, like, again, mental part of it, dealing with it and how do you deal with it. And some guys need more of that or less of that. And it's really a finicky line.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that is, I mean, and the personalities are like, it totally matters who the person is, right?
Yeah.
Like some are capable more or less, and doesn't mean they're better or worse hockey players because of it, but you just
No.
got to figure out like what makes them work. There was actually a client I was working with the other day, asking me the same thing, like kind of how to deal with stress. Real driven guy, like, but how to
Mhm.
deal with some of this stress, and the discussion just essentially turned to like, what do you like outside of the game? And for the guys that don't like anything, like I do think that's a little bit dangerous, like
Yeah.
when all they do is like hockey. But he had a little bit of interest in a guitar, and so he ended up going buying a guitar, and like that's a great reprieve, right? Like go out and play some tunes, learn some chords, like just something, anything. I mean, I love that your boy's hunting, but I do think it's good when players have something else that they can kind of a mental release from.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
The so as far as the season's going, I mean, okay, and newsflash, you have one of the world's greatest young players on your team.
Yeah.
I just think it's so interesting to have your opinion on it. You didn't know him until you drafted him, and even at that point, you didn't
Right.
know him. I don't know when your first contact would be, probably at rookie camp or training camp.
Yeah.
And then you get introduced to him. Like, first of all, what was that first impression like? I guess on a personal level for you.
Yeah, I guess for me, like I just didn't want to push it and be like in his face and all that stuff. He's an amazingly patient kid. Like he's got so much going on and so many people. And even like our first road trip, 11-game road trip, and we're in Montreal, we're in Toronto, we're in like the hockey hotbeds of the world, right? Pittsburgh, Boston. So, and it was just it's pretty interesting to see how many people wanted to get a piece of him or like talk to him or see him or like just the visual of you've heard about this kid and what is he and just wild. So I think right off, like introduce myself obviously and work with him kind of day to day, but being a little bit off, like not pushy, right? Like he's got so many people in his life right now, and it all kind of becomes kind of who it's got to be more organic where we have to at this point now we're what 16 17 games in, and now I think he kind of understands where all the coaches, because there's we have 4 coaches, a couple of development guys are around, scouts are around, and like I think at first he's not sure who's who, like, and you got media guys and you got you have like 20 people around and medical people around, and that they're all people that are just a face at first, and I think to this point now he knows who the relationships are with and who he deals with more often, and so that's been pretty good, and he's really he just wants to learn, right? Like he's always he's not always asking questions, but he's always super receptive, like when you want to have a conversation or if he has a question he asks. But he's been really like his please and thank you, and he's been great. So it's pretty good. It's admirable for a kid, because I have boys the same age that are he's living in Chicago more or less by himself. I think his parents are in and out, and the media attention, and just like everybody wanting a piece of his time, and how he's handled it all, and still be able to play hockey. I mean, he's got 10 goals so far this year, and you almost wouldn't know it because he's just kind of going about his business and trying to learn and play it in the NHL. So pretty cool.
Let's talk about those goals. My God.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. He's a special talent for sure. He can really shoot a puck, and his stick is so quick. So
Is that what it is? Like, I mean, I've been gaining, I don't know, like my initial, like, and I'm talking now 2 years ago, like I wasn't, there's been some media around him for a while, especially him out west here and me in BC. So I've had some eyes on him for a little bit, and I wasn't really sure, but like I'm becoming quite more convinced like that he's very, very special. But it is like with his shot, like he guys shoot it quick in the
yeah.
NHL. I mean,
Right.
like guys shoot it quick. Guys have good releases. Like, and he definitely has a crazy release, but it just seems like there's something about it that is like beyond. Like,
Yeah.
is it the way? Is it the angle that he delivers it
I
to
think he has a little bit longer
What
stick,
do
so
you
he's
think?
able to find holes. Like he has really good hockey sense. So like he does have a good visual of what's going on. Like I guess the goal last night was a great example of that. He just like at the last second pushed it like 3-4 inches, and then he found a thing and then puts the top shelf, right? So he found a triangle, wasn't afraid of it, and just buried it like just like that. So the guy thought he's gonna block the shot, and before you know it, he skipped it like 3 or 4 inches, and then
Thanks for listening as always. Appreciate you and appreciate you being here. But I'd love to know if you like the direction of the conversations, or if there's any type of content or play or position within the game that you'd like to hear about. What do you want me to ask? Who do you want to have on? What do you want to know more about? Love hearing from the listeners, from you guys when I can. Obviously, there's content and topics that are I'm passionate about that I want to cover, but if there's any areas that you think are under addressed here or areas that you'd like to hear more of, by all means, please send them my way. Best way to get a hold of me is jason@upmyhockey.com. So that's jason@upmyhockey.com. That goes direct to me. And I would love to hear your feedback, one on the podcast, or two, if there's any direction you think we should be running with it. And for all those of you who have sent in a review in the last little while, I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing the episodes and getting active on social. I know a lot of times with this podcast, we take some of the highlights and some of the clips, and I put them either on YouTube or I put them on Instagram, sometimes within my parent group on Facebook, the Up My Hockey parent group on Facebook. And it really helps if you do share those clips as well, and comment on Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube. Currently trying to grow that YouTube channel. So if those are all ways you can help out the podcast and help out My Hockey without really investing any of your hard-earned dollars into it. Just by sharing and by liking and by reviewing, those are great ways to support me and what we got going on here by helping young athletes be their best. So without further ado, I bring you back to the conversation with Derek Plante. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
What is I've heard different things about his stick. Is it pretty like a 63 or a 65 or something? Do you know what he uses?
I don't know what I guess it's like a 65, I guess. Like, yeah, it's the Sherwood. I was talking to him yesterday. It's like got a double kick point or something, and I'm like, well, what does that mean? He's like, I'm not exactly sure, but I know I hold my hands really high, so it helps me when I have my hands high to shoot a puck better. So yeah,
that's cool.
He knows how to really whip it. So like, yeah, I think he's just that really quick, strong hands. Like even when he just little passes and stuff, he's able to just without much movement, just snap passes. And not seeing the shot.
That's actually an interesting point you bring up there. Like he does. The ability to have your hands tighter and generate more momentum would I think the physics of it, not that I'm a physicist or anything, but it would allow for more whip on that stick, and you definitely can see the momentum he generates there. And then I did hear he uses a pretty lightly flex stick, which also helps. So anyways,
lot
going on.
I always wonder sometimes with too much flex, like does it take longer to get off sometimes because there's so much flex? But I think the way he does it, it's so quick through there, so it doesn't. Yeah, he just uses it. He maximizes the usage of that whip. So
super special though. Hey, like 18 years old, and scoring on goalies, from distance in the NHL. Like that's crazy, at this age.
And he's still learning, right? So he's still taking some shots once in a while that he won't probably take in 3 or 4 years because he knows by then that the goalies are just saving that one. Even they're not junior goalies anymore. These are NHL goalies that are really good. So they do stop pucks that if you're, a lot of times if they're looking at you, they're still going to stop it regardless of how good your shot is.
Yeah.
Beat people.
That one in Florida though, right? Like he scored a couple already where I would have said like, I would never have tried that, or like shot that.
Yeah, right. It's great. He was, he thinks about it too. Like he's a goal scorer that thinks about scoring goals. So it's like, oh yeah, I saw that goal the other day. I had to try it. I'm like, well, you thought of all that in 0.1 second, like pretty cool. Yeah, but so he's doing good.
I talk about, and you've already mentioned it, to mature beyond his years by the sounds of it. The media attention that he's had already and navigating those spaces in his rookie year. All that is crazy. And I love to talk about the person behind the hockey player. I think that's a very relevant point. And it seems to me, because I've worked with some players that played with him in Regina. So like I kind of had an inside scoop on that too, because no offense, talking to somebody in Chicago with the Blackhawks, everything's going to be roses, I'm sure, right? Like we're not going to say anything negative about him, but he does seem like a really humble kid. Like he's got swagger and confidence, no doubt, but he still seems grounded.
He does. It's pretty cool how he's just so calm about everything, and maybe that's because he's grown up in an environment where he's had to, right? He's a pretty calm kid and seems to handle it all pretty well. I'm not obviously at home with him and maybe stressed out. I don't get that impression, but I don't really see him in his his hotel room or in his house when he's alone. I see him at the rink, and around the hockey where it's, we're all more comfortable when we're in our locker room in our area that's kind of closed off from some of that stuff.
Yeah. Does he? We already talked a little bit about his physical skill set, meaning like how he releases the puck and some of these angles that he's able to create with his stick, so on and so forth. But do you think he thinks differently at all? Like you talked a little bit about he's thinking about goal scorers. Like, do you think that he has a different approach to the game, or any of that thing when it comes to the mindset aspect?
A little bit. I don't think it's like so far off or so far different than everybody else. I think what I do think is he does see things fast, because he makes some plays that are so quick that he had to be thinking about it before he got the puck or had the puck. So I think he does have a pretty good sense of what's going on, and he can probably react as faster than most people and make those plays. So,
right.
he hasn't, like, we haven't had conversations about some crazy plays or any of that kind of stuff that nobody's ever thought of,
Right.
So
preparation, I think with the younger guys, I mean, that's something that you sometimes grow with your career, right? Like you learn how to be a professional. I mean, an 18-year-old kid, and you have Korchinski there, 19, like most of their routine just goes around out of habit, not necessarily like trying to create some sort of optimal environment, like, is that something that you just sort of let these guys figure out in that scenario, or hopefully they ask questions, or how do you handle that?
They do. I probably would say a little bit off our plate, maybe. I mean, we can talk about it and stuff, but I think that's when I did player development with Chicago, that was a big thing that was on our plate. It's like get them to learn that there's a routine that, at some point you'll find works for you the best, right? And we all kind of tinker with that through our things, because we have things that hold us up sometimes, and little, I got to tie my right skate first, my left skate first, or whatever your routine is. I think guys kind of go through it, but you'll find what sleep works good. Do I sleep? Don't I sleep? What I eat? All that kind of fun stuff. And I think the player development side, deals with that more. And so a little bit off our plate on that stuff, but
right. And then a guy that comes in like him, though, that kind of skips the player development sort of model, right?
Right. Because he doesn't really deal with those guys till after he's drafted, but it seems like he's had enough people around his camp to say that, they have similar type people, I think, with them.
He knows what he's doing.
Giving that some advice. And, I think he's still a young kid. He's still learning it out. He's still figuring it out. I don't know. It's hard to say.
The one thing that was intriguing me with him is, like, I don't know how to put it. Like he's so good that he's probably just going to be so good, but you definitely, as an organization, like I would think in the back of your head is like, we can't screw this up. You know what I mean? Like, and in that, and maybe that's not the motivation. You obviously want him to be the best that he can be, but was there a little bit of a different, like, whether it's a game plan or a management meeting about like, how are we going to do this with him? Like, was that ever discussed from a top line level?
That's a fair question, right? Like that might be something we wouldn't maybe always answer, but I think there's definitely there's a feel around there that they want us now to start playing a certain way that's more advantageous to, like, when we have Connor and Korch and Reichs, and we get all these little bit higher, like more speed, more pace, and make sure that we're playing that way so that we are playing the way that we will play when we get better, right? So, I mean, that's kind of been the mantra so far, is just to play fast, play at pace, play it, not necessarily not a defensive game, but let's make sure we're putting those guys in situations they can have success.
Yeah, fair enough. And then you mentioned earlier, like, just even with your own personal approach to, whatever, introducing yourself to him and not being in his face. Like, was that sort of left to the staff to figure out how that was going to be done? Like, even like the approach with him?
Yeah, for sure. There's there's a little bit of what I say doesn't carry obviously as much weight as what Luke says. So there's some things that, we kind of back and forth with some of that stuff, and make sure that it's not like they're young kids, so they're learning stuff, right? Like he's still learning some of the D zone stuff, which is fair. Every kid is. I think every kid that age is still learning the D zone stuff. So some of it comes from me, some of it comes from Luke, and some comes from Kinger. So we're just trying to spread it out without being overly harping on them and shut them down either, right? So let's learn it at a place where we feel comfortable that you can put you out there at all situations at some point.
Yeah, that's fun. Well, and then the Edmonton Oilers still haven't figured out how to play D zone either, though. So you mean maybe some guys never get it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And well, that's the question, right? Because I think you need that stuff if you want to win. If you ultimately want to win, I think you need to have those in your game, regardless of who you are.
I've obviously just joking. Those guys are unbelievable over there in Edmonton. But it is funny, like when they can't get the puck in your net. And I was just looking last night, like this one goal, they had 5 guys that you could throw a blanket over almost in the slot, like protecting the house, except for the guy that was in the middle of the house who got the goal. Like everyone was looking at the puck. I'm just like, holy smokes. Like, wow.
I don't know how to comment on that.
Yeah. Well, no, there's nothing to. I mean, and
you're right, though. I mean, I think go back to like, I know it's just easier to talk about a guy like Mike Modano or even Yzerman. Like you could see through their whole careers that they were ultimate scorers until they like decided like, okay, we really want to win. Instead of scoring 55 or 60 goals, I might score 40. But I give up a lot less, and then those guys started winning championships, right? Like you can go back through time, and almost every great player was at that some level. Like, okay, I think both ways is when we actually start to win.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. And I think I just find that interesting now because there's so much, even like just with the structure of the D zone, there's a lot of collapse mentality like into the slot. But the puck watching, I think, is at an all-time high for whatever reason. Like, I don't know. Like, it just seems like it's really prevalent, except for the teams that are like really good defensively that they don't. But I don't know how the heck you cure that. But
yeah, I don't know. I think maybe the way the game's played right now, it's so fast and there's so many offensive players. And I think sometimes there's a lot of players that can skate really fast and have a lot of skill set that aren't always thinkers. And so again, like deep zone, you still have to make some reads really quickly. And if you don't make those reads, we had some guys come up that are young guys, right, doing really good, and they think they don't try, or obviously intentionally, but it's amazing. Like one turnover, turn back in your net before you even like blink your eye. It happens so fast in this league. So all you have to do is make one little misstep, and all of a sudden it's in your net. It happens so fast. Know what? And all of a sudden your confidence is like, holy shnikes, what just happened? I don't even know what happened, right? So
I totally find it. I don't know. Like maybe it's just a bias because I see it more. But it seems like the mistakes the young guys make end up in the back of the net. But yet an older guy, for whatever reason, somebody makes a stop or it hops over a stick or something. And
I think they're just a little bit cagier. They make their mistakes in better places, right? But the young guys are still like, oh, I can make one more move. No, didn't work.
Fair enough. So you're responsible for the PP. So that was one thing that I was watching his first few games, as I think a lot of the hockey world was. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting when it comes to Connor was of course, I think, of course, he's on your first PP. But the thing that I thought was interesting is not the fact that I think a lot of the PP goes through him, because I think it probably should. Like he's brilliant out there. But it was his ice time. Like I was like his whole his 4 guys would change and he was out there till like the end, right? And I was like, wow, like 18 years old, 2 games in the league, and he's taking the whole 2 minutes.
That's not by plan, I don't think. I think that just happened a couple times because he's mostly they'll stay as a unit and they change as a unit. We really want to wear them down that way and have them, it's not okay to be out there for 2 minutes. I mean, if it happens because you're in the zone the whole time,
right,
so be it. But I think that's really the only case that happens.
So that would be something.
That would be more like, I think that only, no, I know what you're talking about because I've seen enough of it that's only happened a few times. And so.
Gotcha. Okay. And then that would be
give him a little bit of leash. Like we're not gonna, sit him for doing that, obviously, because usually when he's doing it, like, we played on the power plays when we were younger. And like, if you're out there in the yellow zone, you got stuff going on. Yeah. We don't want to like change just to change. Right. So.
Yeah. No, I just thought that was interesting because that would be like the personal management of that. Like I think it's super cool that he wants to be out there. There's obviously the old school side of me of like, well, there's other really good players that want to get a chance out there too, and all that kind of team aspect stuff. But anyways, like again, he's going through it. He's the guy that should be out there, and I just think he's such a special case that all those things are kind of maybe like overthought a little bit. Like I know that I would be in that scenario. Like, what do you say? Do we say something like, or do we not? Or like, how do we?
I think it's a mention, but it's not a hard line just because he's a really good player and he's proving that he's worthy of being out there too. If he was not scoring at all and doing that, then it'd be different, right?
Right. Yeah, fair enough. I think we would be, or I would be doing him a disservice, and I think he's kind of, I'm saying Kevin Korchinski, like 19 years old. I mean, I would say, I never played D, but I think it's a lot harder position to probably step in as a young player to play in the NHL. And from what I've seen, he's doing absolutely amazing. And there's almost nobody talking about him because, like me, I'm sitting here talking about Connor Bedard. Is this guy flying under the radar? Like, how special is this guy?
He's really good. I mean, it's amazing because again, he's a young kid. He's I think 4, what 19 years old, and he's coming into the season, I'm like, he won't be ready. Just on general terms, he won't be ready. But he's been really good. Like again, he's a little bit more on the offensive side and can really he's really great at breaking a puck out. Like he finds plays, he finds guys coming out of the zone. So that's probably really why he can play right now, because there's still some of the other parts of his game that have to short up. You're playing against men, you're playing against cagey men. So he's been out there for a few goals against, but he's learning, and every day there's a guy that just every time you tell him something, it's a pretty fast correct for him. Yeah. Right, you talk about it, and he's like the next day he's kind of working on it to do it better, and kind of implements it in his game, and then some of this just takes reps, right? I think, what do they say? It's like 400 games, 400 or 500 games before those guys really get to where they want to be. Maybe he's a little bit ahead of that curve, right? Like that would probably be most NHL defensemen, but I mean, you see these other guys like Quinn and Makar and those guys. I don't know if he's at that level, but he's a pretty good defenseman, and they're doing amazing things at a young age. So we're hoping they're somewhere in between, right, with him. Right. And he's only 19 games in or 17 games in, and he's doing pretty good.
He's doing great. I mean, that was the thing. I was a little bit surprised too, because I had a chance to watch him only for the first time really all year. Was at the Memorial Cup last year, and I had eyes on him live, and I liked him, but I didn't. I mean, what I saw there, I didn't think he'd be NHL ready. This season. Yeah. And but holy smokes, I think in some games, I haven't seen all of your games, but the games that I've seen, just his puck poise, like you're saying, his ability to break it out, like his little hesitation and his patience, he's got really good patience in his game. Maybe sometimes a little bit too much, that's where he gets in trouble. But right. He's got the confidence and the swagger to be trying this stuff at the NHL level. I think it's great.
Yeah, that's a great observation, because I think that's what they learn over time, right? When do you have time? When do you not have time? When can you be patient? When can you be hurried? That just takes time. I just need to play in the league and kind of become that cagey guy that is I got this guy in a good spot or a bad spot, and how can I exploit it, right? So yeah, he's been good. I think from last year's training camp to this year, way better. But I think he's put on some weight. He doesn't look like a big guy, but he's actually, when you see him in in the locker room and stuff, he's a lot thicker than he was a year ago. So he did a lot of work to get stronger and stuff. So right. That obviously helps him too, especially at this level. His bigger, stronger guys, and just the wear and tear every day. That his skating is really great, so he can get away from people. But he's just strong enough to actually be in a battle and win the battles too. So that helps.
Yeah, no, that's great. Any surprises this year for you? What's the most pleasant surprise for you? 19 games in or whatever.
I think Vlasic for us, defenseman, big defenseman. He's been a good guy on a radar, and I think they've done a great job with his development as far as they wanted. He came up for a few games last year, but just wanted him to play that whole year in Rockford and just play and be a pro and get some games under his belt. And yeah, I think he's been really, really good, better than I maybe expected. So he's been a pleasant surprise for sure.
That's awesome. You mentioned that as being the plan for him was to be a pro for a year, and he did come up for a little bit. Taking your experience from the development side, is there almost a little bit of a personal plan for each player in the system, where you guys see him and what his journey might look like? I know sometimes guys accelerate and sometimes guys delay it, but is there a plan?
Yeah, I think all the guys have a plan. I think there's we're trying to be more patient than hurry. Obviously, it seemed a little bit you're not hurrying Bedard because he's ready to be here, and Korchinski's a little bit of, are we, is he ready or not? But he would have to go back to junior, so I don't think it's really in his best interest. So he's good enough to be here, and he's going to just learn through the fire, I guess, right? But a lot of the other guys, you got a couple other guys in Rockford this year. That's probably just a plan for them to be down. They might get some games up if they're playing really well, but for the most part, it's a plan just let them play and play the crap out of them down there, and let them get better and better, and then they'll be ready to come in and have success. I think the scene when I was doing the development stuff, it did matter, right? Guys start here and then have to go down. It didn't seem to go as well, right? For whatever reason. If you go there, you even spend a little bit of time and then you get called up. I think just in the locker room, the vibe's better, and you just kind of have a better understanding of what's going on and feel like you've earned it, right? Yeah. So, it just seems like a better path, never be in a hurry, right? Just earn it, and it just seems like a more steady kind of climb.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. And there's a few It's just interesting because I've really been following that. I mean, lately, like Tchaikovsky, even Byfield, right? Like these
Mhm.
guys that um, I don't have eyes on them all the time, but it just seems like they, because of where they got drafted, like given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, that if they didn't have that number beside their name, like they wouldn't be there, plain and simple. You know, like they would
Yeah,
be somewhere else, right?
yeah,
But there is an investment there. Obviously, they're identified. So now it's like we really need this guy to be a player. And to your point, like, wow, you just want to make sure you get it right. I mean, back to my even question with Connor, right? Like, I
yeah,
mean, he's a different level, but like, you don't want to be too soon. You don't know all the time what you're doing right. Another guy that comes to mind, Planter, who I just had on, is Shane Doan, right? Like, he came
yeah.
up, he played a year or two, and then was down in the minors after that, right? Like,
Right.
crazy, you know what I mean? And he came back and had the career that he had, but like, that's not always the case when
No,
that
some
happens.
guys don't come back from that for whatever reason. It buries them, whether it's mentally or maybe they just weren't ready or they just didn't get the reps they needed when they needed them at the right age too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know how exactly that. Everybody's got a different equation or a formula, I think.
It's such a science, though. I mean, really, and it's an imperfect one at that. But I mean, there is a process and a route. You know, I mean, I think that's
The
for
one,
sure.
the one rule that I think is an odd rule, and Korchinski falls into that rule, is like at this point, it feels like there should be one kid in every group that could go to the AHL instead of back to the Western League, or I shouldn't say Western League, but just
Yeah.
CHL in general, right? Like, it just seems like every organization has one, right? Like, he's probably too good to play junior again, and maybe he's not quite ready for the NHL. Like, it'd be nice to be able to send that kid to the AHL and let him play there and play
Right.
where he's like in the middle,
Yeah.
right? Where he's right where he fits, right? Because sometimes the NHL's over your head, but you're not doing that kid any service by playing him in the, in the CHL either. So
I know, what a huge difference, right? Like that Minton
yeah, I mean,
in
like if you
Toronto
put
too.
that in young kids terms, right? It'd be like going from like let's say major midget back to Pee Wee. Like, does that make sense for anybody? Not really, but that's kind of how it works, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point. That's a great point. Um, the like, how do you usually, I don't talk like current on this podcast like this, but I think it's interesting just with like what you guys are doing as an organization, and then also, you mean, you're trying to have pieces, um I won't say specifically around Bedard, but like, you want to be relevant. You don't want to be in the doghouse. You want to be as competitive as possible. And yet one of your big pieces that was supposed to be helpful, and Taylor Hall, is now gone, potentially, it sounds like, for the season.
Yeah.
Like, what happens there? Like, who comes in to fill that spot? Like, there really isn't anyone, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that. Yeah, I don't have the answer to that. I mean, yeah, you clearly have those guys around to give them some support and be, good leaderships around. And then when they get hurt and they're not around, that leaves a little bit of a hole because the guy you're replacing with him probably doesn't have 900 games under his belt, or you know what I mean. Like, a guy like Taylor Hall, he's been MVP in the league,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, it matters. That experience is what you want around him. So what the plan is, I don't know. That's above my pay grade, but.
Right.
But I mean, that's the purpose, right? Is to have guys around that they can kind of lean on, or kind of like when he has questions or they've been through it before, or how
Yeah.
can they can answer the question.
What is there a short term? Did someone get called up from Rockford because he's out, or was there
Yeah, we
three
we
guys left?
called up Cole Gutman, and we called up um, Space spacing out now.
That's okay. Another guy.
Yeah, I know the guy really good too. I'm trying to think of his name.
Okay, man. It's no disrespect. I have
No,
name blanks all the time.
yeah, so we'll be fine. Those guys will be fine. They'll be they've earned it too. They've been playing really good in Rockford. So
Right.
Joey Anderson, for gosh sakes, I know him, like, recruited him to Duluth. That's why it's so funny.
Right.
I had to think about it for a second, but yeah, Cole Gutman and Joey Anderson got called up, so they'll probably pencil in. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, those whatever the injuries, as unfortunate as they are, in our sport, and well, in any sport for that matter, now there is an opportunity there that wasn't there before, and
yeah,
wow, careers can be made on that too. So sometimes you get a
right.
pleasant surprise when that
Timing,
happens.
timing's
Yeah.
everything, right? And come in
Yeah.
and be opportunistic when it is your time.
One more short break from the podcast just to share some ongoing deals with Up My Hockey. It's been an amazing first half of the season. Been working with a few teams, and it's been super super fun. And my inner circle has been rolling, and my private clients are doing great. It's a really been a really busy season, and it's been an honor to work with everyone that I've worked with. And in saying that, I really. It's amazing how much value teams get. The the program and the content is, I'm not sure how to even put it. Like it engages the group. It's content that it can potentially seem boring. And I've seen other people talk about similar things that I talk about, but for whatever reason, and I say this as humbly as possible, the boys don't seem to get excited about it, and the girls don't seem to buy in and make it actionable. But for some reason, the way that the program is laid out, the way the calls are engaged and designed, uh, it seems to be something that the players get excited about, and they start getting excited about their own development, and they start getting excited about the connections they are making and their approach to playing their best. So sometimes it's not the content, sometimes it's just the way that it can be delivered. Maybe sometimes it's the messenger. I'm not sure what the combination is there, but it has been really, really fun to be a part of the journeys of the teams I've been working with and the players. And that's just a long-winded a long-winded commercial, I guess, because the second half, usually teams do stuff in the first half, right? So the first half is when everyone wants to get on board, and we onboard these teams, and they have great success. And my schedule's super full. But in the second half, it's also a great time to do this. I know it's a little bit unconventional if you're sitting there with a team right now and you're gearing up for the playoffs. But like after Christmas and like the January, February before the March and April rolls around is a fantastic time to get involved with the program. The program can be done in as little as 4 weeks, or it can be done over 8 weeks. And both fit in very, very nicely to that second half. So I do have some spots open on my schedule right now to take on some teams in the second half. So if that's something that you think would benefit, and let me tell you, I promise you that it will, you're not even going to win more hockey games, and you're going to do better in the playoffs, but your kids are going to have a lot more fun in the second half, getting to practice and putting in the work to try and get better. So yeah, that's Jason at Up My Hockey again. That's the best way to get a hold of me, or through the website, upmyhockey.com. You can fill out the contact form and let me know a little bit about your team, where you're at, and what you're hoping to accomplish. And we'll see if we can fit you in here on the second half. So that's all I got for you with Up My Hockey. Lots of good stuff happening. The new website should be dropping shortly. I'm not sure when this is actually going to be released, but you can always check out that. Some new content and a little new look there. And yeah, let's just get back to the conversation with Derek Plante. Why don't we just turn the conversation a bit to your boys? For the audience, both your boys are players. The one was part of the National Development Program, or is still, right?
I have 3 boys, yeah. So the oldest one is in Fargo in USHL, and the middle one is in the US program. He's on the U18 team, the older team. And then I have my youngest one he's in 08. He's playing, what would you call it? U15, I guess, 15 or whatever they call it this year.
Yeah. All players and want to get paid for it one day.
Well, they'll want to. I don't know if they ever will, but
right. But I'm just saying that's their goal, right? Like they want to be hockey.
I think so. Yeah, they're all pretty in tune and doing all right. So
yeah,
that would be their awesome.
Mm-hmm. So I got 3 boys too, and it's interesting because here we are having this conversation, in different capacities, and you're obviously at the the highest level there. Yet you're still a hockey dad. How do you like? First of all, maybe we'll start there, because I joke with hockey parents that Wayne Gretzky's dad, like no one wants to listen to Wayne Gretzky even if he's the dad, right? Like,
yeah, right.
You know
right.
what I mean? Like some relationships are better than others, and I don't mean to make it better or worse, but you know what I mean? No. It's just hard when you're a dad sometimes. Do they want to listen to what you have to say right now?
Yeah. I really try to pick I'm not every day like picking it up, right? Like I think, and there's, when there's the work ethic, right? Like any dad, like that's where it starts and ends, right? Like if you're not working hard, you're going to hear about it every time. Yeah. The other stuff, like only when I feel like I can help them and they're willing to listen. I'm not coaching them every day, so I always be cognizant of what the coach is saying too. I don't want to be telling them something else to the coach and be contradictory. I know that doesn't work very well, so you don't want to put a kid in a bad spot. So I try to think about that and ask what the coach is telling them first, and then if I can help them. And it's mostly just little things, right? A little bit where to go and how things might work, but
routes and reads, right?
Yeah. Right. Different reads for different situations. You might make this play. It might help you if you try this, or, and then they try it and they either like it or don't. The older 2, they have professional coaches now. So it's a little bit of feedback, not as much. Right. So.
Yeah.
That's good. And they all are different. I don't know. Your boys are probably like that too. They all take it a little bit differently. Some take it really personal when I say something. And the other ones are kind of like one you can kind of yell at him and it's fine. He isn't rattled by it or nothing either. So
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's totally the same. I find it's the same way, like in-house, like you have to know the personalities, you have to know how to
mhm.
deliver a message,
Yeah,
or try, your best. And then as it is, like when you're working with the team, like, I mean, you can't, you
yeah.
can't say the same thing to whoever as you will to Billy, because it's going to be received differently, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Like it's no different than like the video. Some guys you can show them video all day long and it's going to help them. And other days you have to show them video. They don't going to get it. Like just talking to them is not going to work. Like
Yeah.
some guys you can just kind of explain it to them and they totally visualize and get it. And just there's different ways for every guys. And yeah, it's interesting gamut for sure.
Yeah. I like how you bring that up though, as far as the effort. I mean, when I'm talking with hockey parents, and I have this hockey parent group on Facebook, and I mean, try and help parents in different spots with the journey, because I know, like, damn, like hockey's tough to navigate, especially when you got good players, like, because there's so many routes now, there's so many this, there's so many
Yeah.
that. And it's hard enough for you and I, like with your own kids, and we were pros forever, right?
Yeah,
Like
right.
so I kind of started it just, for the people that haven't been around it and don't know it, and
Yeah.
like just sort of support. But that's a long way of saying, like, I think like parents can, no matter who you are, evaluate effort.
Yeah. You should
And that
know
has to be the kingpin. I say effort and attitude are the two things that you should be critiquing your player on. And if they do those things well, then the car ride should just be fine.
Yeah, right. I think that all the time. It's like, how do you treat people, and in your effort every day is like the two things you can control in life. And sometimes after that, you can't control nothing, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how it feels. So, I mean, if you're doing those things, then everything else can take care of itself.
Yeah. No, I think that's big. And then I guess as far as if anyone wants to listen to any advice when it comes to coaching, like, I totally find that, especially with my own kids, but even elsewhere, one, ask permission if they want to hear something, or wait until they ask you. Because like when you're giving it, something that they don't want it, they're not going to receive it anyways, right?
Yeah.
Like your intention could be great, but they're just the ears are closed off, they're walled off, and all it is giving resentment and resistance and everything else. So I always say, like, ask, hey, do you want to be coach? Is there something I can help you with? They say yes or no, or wait for the question. I mean, in their own house, it's a little different than obviously at a hockey rink with your team, but I do think those are pretty good guidelines to engage good discussion.
Yeah, no, I think that's super smart. Yeah. Like I even see that on a daily, like, the guys come back to the bench and when they're in a huff and they're smashing their stick and stuff, it's probably not the best time. Like, make sure you get that puck out, right? Like, it's just not going to work. So maybe we'll wait till a couple of shifts later and we'll talk about that later. Like, it's depending on what kind of mindset they're in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. I don't know. I thought about the power play again, and you mentioning that you're responsible for that. And I just listened to a question somebody asked Bruce Boudreau the other day, talking about Pittsburgh. And I know that's not I mean, obviously that's not your team, and you're not going to break down Pittsburgh's power play, but it's operating like 15%. Edmonton's is off this year, like really, really good personnel on the ice in both scenarios. And the question was, like, why does it click sometimes and why does it doesn't? Like,
Yeah.
What's your theory with the power play, being a power play guy? Like, what are you trying to accomplish and what are you trying to do?
I think you're just trying to create repetition and like try to figure out a way to beat the odds, or maybe use the percentages. Like, some of these power plays in the league are just so consistent because they just are repetitively doing the same things and they're consistent with it and they stay with it. And some of those power plays are so good. I think sometimes we just think we can pass it in the net, and sometimes it just takes a shot. And I would play in a power play when I was playing, and I never loved the guys that shot the puck all the time because it seemed like you didn't always get it back. But now as a coach, you feel a little bit differently about, like, the shot really kind of creates chaos. And I think that when you have the better players out there, the chaos is where they do best in a lot of ways. So I don't know. It's really
That's
super
true,
finicky. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a curse, or maybe I don't know. It's great to work at the power play because you work with these elite athletes and great players and trying to figure stuff up. But it's also like, is the power play ever really good enough? Like, if you're at 30%, you're just like, you're laughing. You're like, okay, this is good, but you're only 30%. The other 70% of the time, it's just getting kicked down the other end, and you're not scoring. And you don't score when you really need one, and you're still mad at it. So
yeah,
it's a little bit of a curse, but yes, a blessing. I don't know. It's a weird animal.
What an interesting concept, though. I like how you put that there. Like chaos is where some of these guys thrive, which actually, I mean, is the complete opposite of structure, right? And I
Mhm.
remember like on a power play, like working through a structure, and you have your set plays. Yet to your point, I mean, sometimes the goals happen when everyone's just reacting, right? And you're letting guys be instinctive. That's interesting. How to combine that? Hey, like controlled chaos would be an interesting thing
Yeah,
of like
right, right.
what to do there. The one thing Bruce Boudreau said, and I thought that was interesting too, was like uh he mentioned Edmonton's power play, like the Nuge in the middle, bumper, really knew what his job was awesome at it. You have the two flanks that are obviously world class players that can zip the
Yeah,
puck, shoot the puck. You have the guy at the top that can shoot or pass. Then you have Hyman in front of the net, creating chaos and being great net front presence. In other
yeah,
words, meaning like he was kind of contrasting that with potentially Pittsburgh this year, and like maybe too many guys want the puck, and
yeah,
maybe too many guys know what they are. Like, do you think that's a pretty good key too, of like having distinct kind of player identities within
yeah.
that power play?
I think so. I think there's definitely like something to be said about like having like Ovechkin be able to shoot from the same spot. I don't know if I can comment on other players or not, but he's been able to shoot from that same spot forever, and you can't stop him because he's so great at it. So yeah, having special elements on teams can definitely help you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a finicky animal. I think the other thing is just trying to establish threats, right? Establish threats, because then they, when I listen to the penalty kill all the time too, and it's really like let's always take away their biggest threat, right? A lot of times. So if you can establish 3 or 4 threats, then maybe you have the ultimate power play, right?
Right.
Probably why some of these power plays are so great. They have 3 or 4 great players on them, and then when they're clicking, you just can't stop them because you have one
Can't
less
cover
guy,
them all. I
right?
noticed that already too. Like that there has been some teams that have definitely like tried to not have Connor have the puck. I mean, that they're trying to take away that seam, right?
Yeah,
And then obviously, then it's kind of your guys' job, or to either find another option or find another way to get them open. Like,
yeah,
uh, I have talked with a few guys that have been responsible for the PP before, and it's one of those things like, God, it probably keeps you up at night sometimes, right? Like
yeah.
if it's not
You
going,
wanted to succeed, and sometimes I'd have to take a step back and say like, you can give them a great plan, but at some point they got to execute and make the plays too, right? Like I don't
right,
know that I try to think back when I was on the power play, and like there's no coach that actually got in the net for me, right? It was a little bit like we had to make some plays at some point, and you got to find the play, and someone's got to put it in the net. So
yeah.
you can give them a great plan, and you want it. You're so invested in it that I take it personal when we don't do well, but I try to at least make sure I sleep at night knowing that a great plan doesn't always work if it doesn't go in.
Yeah.
Hit a pipe or whatever. I'm not going to worry about it. So
Yeah, it's probably that. I mean, you don't want to, you want them prepared, I guess, right? I mean, you definitely
yeah,
want them prepared. You want to feel like you've done that, but then it's also like I could see like you wanting it to go so well, you could probably get your hands in the reins almost too much, and like
yeah.
in trying to control too
I
much,
feel like
right?
sometimes I feel like you give them so much information, it just bogs them down too. So
Yeah,
I try not to be like overly bearing. Like try to keep it a little bit like let's use our hockey sense and let's make the reads. You know this is what they're doing. Just take the information what you can and let's use it somehow.
yeah. Is there little inside hockey just on the structure there? Like, so you have the power play, somebody else, another assistant coach probably has the PK. Luke, head coach, is the figurehead of it all. Like, how much communication is there back and forth? And I mean, how do those role distinctions get assigned and adhered to, I guess, or
Yeah, I
accountable
think Luke kind of assigned him right when we started, and it's like nothing. Like I say, I'm in charge of the power play. Well, Luke's really in charge, right? Like he makes the decisions finally. I just help with that, and I do more of the day to day, the video, and all the stuff like that. But when it
Right.
comes down to the decisions on the ice, and I always go with everything through him because he's the one in charge. I just try to delegate and take some of it off his plate to help him. So, and the same with the PK. Like he knows exactly what's going on. He's invested and he has opinions on it, right? And he expresses his own. So, there's that happy medium of like working together, and then Derek King, I talk to him all the time about it too, to make sure we're not missing anything. So it's always a collaboration, all this stuff. And the way our office is situated is we don't necessarily have offices, but we have like our cubicles. So it's an ongoing conversation all the time with all of us. So it's
Groupthink.
I love it. Yeah, it's great. It's good hockey talk, and it's nobody's so like above anybody else that they don't, like it's all about
Right.
them. It's about like let's get this right and make sure we're doing things right for our guys.
Can you walk us through maybe just last, because Well, actually, I don't even know for the listeners like what if they know what a player's game day routine is, but I would be really sure that probably people don't know what a assistant coach's game day thing is or a practice. Like, what time do you need to get at the rink at? Like, what does a day in the life of you look like on a game day?
Yeah, on a game day, um, usually, well, everybody lives in different places, but in Chicago here with the traffic, I probably leave my house at like 6 in the morning, try to get to the rink, and I'm there by 6:30 or 7. If I leave any later, I'm late. And then for every game that we play, I'll go through at least 3 games of video, the 3 previous games that they've played, just to know what they're doing on the penalty kill and the power play, and that's usually 60 to 65 clips probably in all those, and you go through them, and you got to get that down to like a 2-minute video, which is maybe 8, 9 clips. So you got to get that down to that, and then go over those. And those are the tendencies that we'll show daily. So we'll get that done in the morning, usually like an 8:30 or 9 o'clock meeting, somewhere around there. And then we're on the ice at 10:30, I think. Visiting teams on 11:30, and then whether we skate for a half hour, usually about that, and we'll stay on and skate some of the guys that are not playing, or just do some extra with some of the younger guys.
Yeah.
And then come back at like 4 o'clock or so and get ready. Start getting ready for the game.
So you leave the rink about what time? Like you're home for 2-3 hours?
Yeah. Oh, I don't even usually, like here during the week, I don't even go home. We just stay downtown because there's, by the time I drive back an hour and a half and then drive back to the rink an hour and a half, I spend all my time in the car. So most days I just stay at the rink and hang out and just kill some time, work out. It's been better.
Like a 15-hour day essentially on game days.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, you get out of the rink, whenever the game's over.
Yeah. So. Yeah, there's a lot of commitment there. Hey, like there's a lot of time, because I mean that's the one thing that, I don't think people understand. Like the players arrive early, but they don't arrive as early as the coaches. The coaches are there preparing, right? And then you're usually there after, and everything else. There's a lot that goes into it. So you are responsible for the cuts then, hey? So that's you in there.
Yeah. We have 2 video guys that do a great job. So they get, they cut all the video for each team. So we'll play Toronto. I have Toronto and St. Louis already on my computer. So I'll take, what they've already cut. So it's easy for me, that part of, I don't have to go find the power plays and penalty kill stuff. It's already there. So I just have to, cut those, so that they do a lot of the work that way as far as the video. And that helps quite a bit. And it's just a matter of finding the ones that can, if I can find a way that they, if there's a smoking gun. Is there a smoking gun? There's usually no smoking gun really, but there's probably tendencies. So I'll also watch, all the goals they've given up this year on the power play, and if there's kind of a theme there, and see if that's something that we can do.
Is there there's definitely a trend, I think, in the last 5-10 years about less is more mentality when it comes to video. You said you're watching all this tape to give them 2 minutes, like you specifically said 2 minutes. Is that by design? Like this is what you want to do?
Like anything over that, and it's too long. Like I think just that was kind of Luke's thing, and I think I've heard that before from other assistants too. It's a minute or 2 minutes, and then they start to get tapped out, right? So keep it short and sweet, and give them the tendencies. And we're having a new opponent the next week, so you're not desperately going to change too much. You might have different plans for different teams, but our overall philosophy can be similar, because you don't have time to change in back-to-backs and that kind of stuff to change.
Is that video being watched in the morning at pregame, or is that
yeah, that would be pregame. We'll do that. We'll do that in the pregame before our pregame skate, and then sometimes we'll do the game video when the guys get to the rink at like 5:30. More like Luke will do that with the clips of what their tendencies overall game is.
Right. Yeah, that's wild. I mean, I kind of chuckle to myself, and not that it's happening a ton at the minor hockey level. But as far as video, I think video, you said earlier, I mean, what an amazing tool to like help guys see the game. I think players that want to watch it, especially young players, like you can learn so much. But then sometimes the coaches that do, and I can be victim of this myself, is like, you got 11 to 14-year-olds or 15-year-olds, you just got them sitting in front of a TV for 30 minutes. Like they're tuned out. NHL guys are only watching it for 2 minutes.
Right. I know. And it's, and then that's what cutting it down. You get attached to your videos too. You get attached to the clips. Like, I just love this clip. I got to show them. And then you're like, well, I can only show them like 2 of those clips, not 4, it's funny how when you put yourself into something, you want to make it work. So.
It's like your offspring.
My babies.
Right?
Yeah.
Your labor. Yeah, cool. Anyways, well, you know what? You've been amazing. Thanks for coming out
Yeah,
again. And anyways, yeah, for anyone who's listening, Derek was on me. Boy, that was probably a year ago now, or maybe even more. I
yeah,
lost
maybe.
track. But I mean, your story and your original interview was fantastic. So if anyone's
Yeah, I
interested,
think
go
I
back
was
and listen.
I still at Duluth at that point. I think maybe I was still at Duluth when we talked last.
Yeah,
That was 2 years ago, maybe, or a year and a half
yeah,
ago anyway. So
yeah,
that's good. It's great what you're
yeah.
doing up there. Up
Oh
there in
well,
the north,
thanks, man. I love watching you guys, and it's fun that you get a front row seat to maybe the next one, as they say,
Yeah, we'll see. It's
and growing a new thing.
I'm lucky. I love it. We got a great staff. It's fun. I like to win more than anybody, but I think our environment's been pretty good, and it's good to have some good young players around. So it's a challenge every
Yeah.
day, and it's a lot of fun. It's just a
And
lot
in
of
a
fun.
heck of
At
a
the rink,
hockey
I'm
city
coaching
too, eh?
hockey, right? Like what can go wrong?
Yeah. And Chicago, right? Like what a great franchise history, one of the
Yeah.
best jerseys ever. I mean,
Yeah,
I
they
love
do. Yeah, all that stuff. It's great. It's great to be part of an original six team, and what they've come off of the three championships too is hockey's a big deal here. So
yeah,
it's a lot
for
of fun to
sure.
be around it.
Well, awesome, man. Thanks again, and best of luck the rest of the way. And I'll be continue to Well, thank you for being here till the end. Thank you, Derek, for showing up again and being so easy to get a hold of. I know the season is not not a lot of gaps in the NHL season these days. 82 games, condensed season. Seems like they're playing every other day. And as you heard from in the conversation, like how long these assistant coaches are actually at the rink for on game days and otherwise. There's not a lot of free time, especially when you consider trying to balance a family with all the rest of it. So, Derek, thank you so much for being here. Super gracious. Always a pleasure to have a chat and to kind of pull back the curtain on Connor Bedard. And I mean, you couldn't have a better person. Eyes on Connor every day, going through his rookie season in the NHL, trying to have a positive influence on him. Yet, as Derek says, he's not really wanting to get in the way either. He has so many people, and he has such a good, solid circle that you want to do good by him and protect him, and also offer him where you can. So, I could imagine what an interesting year this is going to be, and what an honor it's going to be a part of Connor's journey. Sorry, Connor's journey. So yeah, there's lots of cool stuff there. I look forward to following Connor's career, and especially his rookie season here, and some insight into what makes him who he is. And we'll be sure to watch with wide eyes as he continues on his progress. So best of luck to the Chicago Blackhawks. Best of luck to Connor and Derek, of course. And until next time, play hard and keep your head up.